9 o'clock-ish. Call the meeting to order. Yeah, I think that's worth, before we get started, announcing that the application for the ISIP grant for Town Hall was submitted yesterday with more than a few pieces of paper. So that's done. Can I get a motion to confirm the agenda? Brian and Jason? Any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Any declaration of pecuniary interest you can declare now or at any time. Seeing none, we'll move on. Motion here to recess into a special meeting at now 9:01 already to discuss the 2020 budget. Motion, let's move that, Jim. Yeah. And Brian. Good. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Need a motion now to appoint chair for this meeting. Brian?
Mr. Woodbury. Mayor Woodbury, be the chair.
Thanks. Barb seconds that. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Okay, well, I'm going to, I guess we need the motion here that we're going to work under as be it resolved, Committee of the Whole received staff report FIN 2019-049 2020 budget as information, and that we recommend to Council this budget be received as information, and that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that this budget is presented at the public information meeting on November 20th. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? And that there's another line, and that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that the 2020 budget be considered for approval on December 4th. Okay, Martin and Jim, and now, hi Liam, your turn.
Morning. Okay, so the last version of the budget anticipated a blended tax rate of decrease of 5.1, so we were directed back with a options to bring it down to 4%. So I have the budget being presented today with departmental highlights attached to the one, has a requirement for taxation of $7,387,704, an increase of $725,535 from the 2019 level, which results in a blended tax rate increase of 4%. So the summary of the adjustments made, a net reduction of $128,457 is provided as attachment 2, and we'll get into that in a second. And as well as I'm presenting the 2020 budgeted schedule of reserves, deferred revenue reserve funds as attachment 3, and I provided the updated 2020 budget capital and special projects as attachment 4, since majority of the adjustments were on the capital and special projects side of the budget. So I think we will go to attachment 2 to go through what the adjustments were from the previous version. So in council, $5,000 was removed from the conference budget, as I believe some of the members were attending the PSB and the OACA conferences were there was budget in other departments that would cover those conferences. In administration, there was conferences and training were accidentally not budgeted for, because with some minor restructuring, I sort of created a CEO department and a course department and a finance department for 2020. So in that transition, one cell was missed being completed, so there's $10,000 added for conferences and training for the CEO and HR assistant. In roads, there was a project for the solar school lights for $22,000 that was removed. The greater use of reserves, that $232,000 was removed. In completing the reserve schedule, that $232,000 was actually a sort of a carryover from last year's 10-year capital and special project projections, so there actually weren't enough reserves available for that project, so that was removed. And then, so in order to compensate for that, there would be additional gas tax reserve use in 2019 instead. there's greater debt of $53,305, as well as the WLR, I forget what that acronym is for. Walder Lake Road, that project was to take $200,000 of gas tax, is now going to take $378,000 worth of gas tax reserves. And then capital reductions, that was summary of capital reductions. Now, operational reductions, sweeping, shouldering, contract services was reduced to $5,000 from $10,000. The graveling materials was reduced to $315,000 from $325,000. And in solid waste, the roll-off containers project was removed. In cemetery, the contribution to reserves for a tractor in 2025 was removed. And in recreation, I know this is a discussion point, the Old Town Hall, the previous version had the full $81,000 coming from taxation in 2020. So now there is no taxation being raised in 2020 for that project. And the adjustment of the cost of the project was based on the CAO's report that came at the last meeting. So basically I updated the estimated cost of the project, that's what those first two lines are. And then the remaining balance of $75,937, I'm going to leave as unfunded in 2020 for future funding. And if you look at in the capital side, it's basically funded by future debt at this current time. And that is a discussion point for council as to how much of that project is to be funded from debt or donations or taxation in future years. So right now, the budget is presented as if the project is being funded from the grant and future debt, which means future taxation. And the last adjustment, I believe, when on the page, is economic development. The cars and buggy contribution had been put to $5,000, so the 2019 budget was $2,500, which wasn't, I believe we only paid like $200 or something out of the $2,500, so that's been reduced back down to $2,500. So all those adjustments total a net $128,000 reduction, which brings us down to the 4% blended tax rate.
Okay, thank you. Jim and Brian?
This is a question more for Jim, I would imagine. Wilder Lake Road, 50% of that road is already paved. You gonna resurface the whole thing?
No, there was a section that was close, a couple hundred meters to the south by the schoolhouse that had pavement, and then we paved from there on. So it wasn't half that block, no, it was only a couple hundred meters past the intersection of 39 that had pavement before. And it was micro-surfaced the year before, 39, or sorry, yeah, no,
You've lost me, Jim.
oh, no, yeah. So, well, yeah, but half that block is paved, and then, it would be paved up to 41. Sorry, I was on thinking 39. So, yeah, just past, there's a bridge there, it's past the bridge, probably about 500 meters or 700 meters maybe, where the pavement ends past that. So, while we're at it.
Brian?
Two questions regarding economic development. The butter cart and buggy contribution, Liam, you mentioned that 2018 or the 2019 allocation wasn't spent. So with the balance of that, has that been put into reserves, or is that just on back into the general fund?
That would end up going back into your tax titleization reserve. So not a specific reserve of that, but.
Right. Okay, that's fine. And the next question, if I might, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
is for Jim. You've reduced both the sweeping and shouldering and graveling materials, is that a reduction in anticipated work, or are you hoping for cheaper gravel?
At this point, those were some of the operations that were increased, and these are keeping them closer to the levels that we currently are, as opposed to increasing levels.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments at this time? Barbara?
Mr. Chair, the solar school lights, it's not a huge amount, and I think it's important to recognize that we've lowered the speed limit in Dundalk for the well-being and safety of residents there. The county has recognized a community school on County Road 14, and Holstein proper also has flashing lights for the schools, and I really think that this school on Woodland Springs Road 49 is in need of some attention. The kids and the horses and buggies that travel along that route to get to the school, which is kind of on a crest of a hill, we've had data that says people are traveling in excess of 100 kilometers an hour. I would hate to see the school lights be cut. I think it's an investment in our community, and it recognizes that we need to keep people as safe as possible, do whatever we can to keep them as safe as possible. So I would hate to see that one go. The other thing that I wanted to mention, I mean, given Deputy Mayor Milne's comments at the last meeting about, you know, the shouldering, and are we doing enough to maintain those shoulders and keep the gravel at the pavement? You think that you can do it for last year's prices, but it's not going to get us any more done. Is that correct?
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, on that note, yeah, you're correct. We're maintaining our levels of previous and what we accomplished with that, but not getting any additional work done on those areas. Just to bring council up to speed, there's November 28th, the county council meeting, that the speed, rate speeds and some other adjustments in other areas of the county is being brought forth with a report. That report is recommending that the Holstein 109 through the village there be reduced to 40 kilometers. The report indicates they do not support 40 kilometers in Dundalk. It will be 50 kilometers through Dundalk unless there's a push through the council to change staff's recommendation. That's their recommendation. And the school lights, why we kind of pushed them off the radar scene was there's been discussion with council, but there was no real direction by council to do that. So we brought it forward in the budget, but that was why it came off the list, kind of sort of and hanging in there.
Go ahead.
So the county doesn't support reducing the speed from 50 to 40 on Main Street, but that doesn't stop us from reducing the speeds on our streets. What are your thoughts on that?
I believe we've done that.
Yeah, we passed that bylaw. We've just been waiting to see if they were following in line. That way we could post a sign at either end of the town, say in all streets or whatever, at 40K, unless otherwise posted. Now we were planning to do signage off some of the main arteries off of Main Street to 40K. Now this is going to make us have to post more signage. There'll be more cost to posting 40K in Dundalk streets.
Thank you. It's a good point too, Barb, about the school signs, and I think one of the things we can do with that, not necessarily for this, but for the future, is as schools are built, maybe through Clint, we can have that as part of the, maybe not site plan, but part of the agreement that they have to have lights. And that way it's, while they're building it, that's a good time to have it there right from the beginning. Go ahead.
And I know that they would be receptive to some form of agreement when we talked about this a couple of years ago. But I mean, school has been there for a while now, and maybe we can use, you know, Southgate Solar Fund.
Any further questions or comments? Martin?
The solar lights, that 22 is just for one set, right?
Correct, yes. One pair.
Okay, Brian?
I guess I'm a little disappointed, in that this is the only options that have been presented, and I know, we can, suggest others as we go here. I can't help, to go back to what Councillor DeBreen was mentioning there, I can't help but think that we need to cut back on our capital projects some more, because there's more maintenance work that needs to be done on the roads, Jim. I guess maybe I didn't make myself clear the other night, or the other day, when I mentioned it's not the graveling of the shoulders that I'm as much concerned about, it's the maintenance of the shoulder on the paved roads that we currently have. Pull that gravel back to the edge of the pavement, because it's breaking off in places, it's getting washed out on some grades. I don't think we did any of that this year, did we?
Yeah, we did a little bit, not as much as usual the way the spring came, and we actually done some just a few weeks ago up around 26th and Railroad Road. We reclaimed some with the disc that we put on the side of the grader.
Particularly, I see the shoulders getting degraded where there's a lot of horse and buggy traffic, because of course they tend to ride on the horses tend to run right on the gravel, right off the edge of the pavement, just for the horses' comfort and traction, I'm sure. And that's where I see the degradation the most. And I really think that we need to do more of that and scale back some of our capital work, and spend more time maintaining our roads. I'm certainly no expert on roads, that's for sure, but I hear what people are telling me, and I see what I see, and it's just not getting done. I think our expertise is in maintaining roads, and let the contractors build the roads.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, I mentioned too at the last council that we still had some money in shouldering and had brought in a contractor to apply it. And they started some of that week before last, and then when the weather came in. We're still planning next week to do about three blocks of 49 with the shouldering machine to help with that situation there. So that's going to pretty much use up that budget. So, and that's kind of where we want to be, to use the budgets that we have. So I think we've said that there was 12 kilometers, I think, of shouldering being done this year. So hopefully we can be in that range for next year too.
Okay.
Okay. Barb?
Back to the county recommendation not to reduce the speed on Main Street. Yeah, it's a thoroughfare. Did they give a reason why they didn't support that? Because, I mean, we do have horse and buggy traffic through there. We have a crosswalk, a couple of crosswalks, school kids crossing up by Yonge Street there. I'm just wondering what the reasons were why they didn't support it.
Go ahead, Jen.
And perhaps then when our representatives can speak to it at the county.
Yeah, no, I never got any comment. They sent me the report. I've been asking where it's been, because I expected to see it sooner than later, but there's no reasons. I myself know that there's a lot more buggy travel in Dundalk as opposed to Holstein. But anyhow, I don't know if they would have had some traffic impact study for the Main Street project, whether they looked at some of that data and said it doesn't support it. I really don't know for sure the rationale.
Bear with me for a second. I've got the agenda up, and I actually don't even see it. I was going to look at the report to see, and I don't even see.
areas I want to highlight for the adjustments. I just want, because you have seen the reserve schedule before, I guess we'll go to attachment 3, and because there was comment about possibly using reserves and stuff, but I just want to show that the reserves we have are mostly for specific projects, and in the 10-year capital and special project plan, all those reserves already have a project that they're tied to. So if you did take from one of those reserves now for a project this year, that means that money is just not available for the project that you had planned to do in the future. So that would change your 10-year capital budget. So.
Any questions or comments on that? Brian, then Martin?
I was just gonna ask, what is our commitment to the Markdale Hospital? Was it 400,000? Is that what it
Yes.
was? And the Great Ridge Health Foundation, how much was our commitment to that?
Was it 25,000? I thought it was 25. Good stuff.
So that one's done.
Good stuff.
And the Mount Forest ER expansion? How much did we commit to
I
that?
think that was 200,000. Yeah.
The reason I'm asking about that one is that project is actually underway. And I suspect they'll be looking for the money this year.
They asked it for to be topped up right away to pay the bills, and I think there was some discussion about borrowing from kind of other reserves in there that aren't in such need, such as Markdale now, just to get us through.
Right.
Continue the Mount Forest contribution,
Yeah.
but kind of steal from one to, let's say, borrow, that's a better word.
Yeah.
To get that done.
Yeah.
But they did send us a letter they'd like that fixed up for
Right.
this year because there's bills coming in.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Martin?
That was my first question. I've got another one. I'd like to think about it, so whoever was up next.
Sorry,
Anyone else have any questions or comments on this? Well, Martin's
Well,
thinking. He thought.
yeah, with this levy we're talking about implementing, that 1% levy for roads, should we really consider looking at that, not maybe this budget, but the next one, because we seem to be taking away from Jim for what he needs just to maintain. So, I kind of agree with Brian, with that initial, it's only 15,000, that means the roads get looked at better, you know. I think we should maybe put that back in, if it makes it 4.3 or whatever, you know. You have to start thinking about that 1% eventually. Or you're making 0.5 to give, what, 80,000 a year extra to the roads? You do need the roads. So, anyway, that's just a comment.
No, I agree. I think the maintenance is one of those things that's an investment that's gonna save us a lot of money and safety issues in the future, so, yeah, I agree too. Any other questions or comments at this point? Okay, seeing none. What do you wanna do next, Liam?
I guess up to council's direction as to what they would like to see added or removed, or whether they prefer the discussion to go. So that was a list of council that staff provided to bring us down to 4% as option.
Mhm.
And it's up to council if they agree with that list, or if they want modifications.
Okay. I'd just like to make a comment and see if this is something that council would like to see, or that it's easy for you to put together. I'm interested, I know we've now bucketed out, you know, the things that we have control of or things we don't, like, you know, the police budget went up and we're looking at other things, but it kind of does a bill basically, so we don't have much choice in that. I'm kind of interested too to see how much of this increase is other things that really we don't have control. And the one that comes to mind to me is the asset management position. That's not something that we want or we're trying to expand. That's something that we're having to do to live up to legislation. And I kind of you know, like when people talk about us raising taxes, just me looking through it, and this has no basis of fact, it's just more feeling, is I think about half of what we're raising our taxes by are things like that are legislated, that we're stuck with. We talked about it yesterday in a budget meeting for long-term care. It appears that the way things are going, instead of cutting funding, they change where the funding's gonna come from, and it doesn't go up or goes down and things like that. So it's a real smoke and mirrors type of thing. And I honestly believe a lot of this that in our budget has to do with things that really aren't our control. For instance, the fire department's another one, the fire prevention and training and what they're put on that way. You know, that's another download. Fire marshal's office used to have tons of people that ran around and did that. And they have less and less people, and we're paying more and more. So that's just my comments. And I as well, I agree with let's keep some maintenance up, even if we expand it in order to save money in future budgets. Does anyone else have any questions or comments or direction that they'd like to suggest, or does staff have any words of wisdom? Martin?
Well, 2 points for me was the school lights, because I know that road, it is pretty bad. Some of the drivers are amazingly terrible. They don't care about what they're driving by, the kids. But putting money back into the roads, I think the amount that should be put back in. I don't know, Liam, what would that make it? 4 point?
To add back, say, the $15,000?
Yeah. And for the sake of argument, put the solar back in there. What would that make it? 4.3? And the solar lights would only be used on the main thoroughfares. There's quite a few other schools on the side roads, so they wouldn't be affected. They wouldn't be, I guess I could talk to Jim about that. It's just for the main, it's not for every Mennonite school, it's just for that one.
The 10-year capital indicated that we would start with, we prioritize the 49 school first, but then to do one a year kind of thing was the train of thought, and how we presented it in the 10-year capital of investing in a set per year.
Well,
So the answer is,
So to put the $22,000 for the solar lights, that's about a 0.19 impact, and the $15,000 for the road maintenance is a 0.13, so combined would be a 0.31 impact.
well, I agree with Mayor Woodbury that it is a safety issue, and we are supposed to look after it in a way, make it safe for the whole community, and the Mennonites do certainly pay their taxes. So I think, for me personally, I haven't, and it's up for discussion, I have no problem with school lights and putting that road work for 15,000 back in, if it's only that marginal amount. I'm a taxpayer, I use the roads, I drive by the horse and buggies, so.
Okay, thank you. Barb?
Just a little history, if I may, Jim can correct my memory if I'm off base, but when we looked at the community schools overall, Jim and his department did some traffic studies and assessed some of the side road community schools where they might have already a stop sign, which is a calming measure, or, you know, it's beyond a stop sign, so people are not traveling at, you know, 80 kilometers, the posted speed limit of 80 kilometers on a gravel road. We don't know, I'm not going to say what they're traveling, but, so there are some of community schools that already have natural calming measures. There is the school on County Road 109 and Southgate Road 8. That is a well-traveled going north and south. And county would entertain putting the signs there. If that was my understanding, because it would be a county decision to put the flashing signs on the county road 109 at that point, because it's actually, the entrance to that school is actually on Southgate Road 8 and there's a stop sign. But the kids are traveling on 109. They're not traveling on Southgate Road 8. They're crossing the street to go home, going north. They're crossing the street when coming from the south to get into the school. So I agree with Jim. I mean, we can't do it all, but I would support putting, I would support putting at least starting out with one set at 49 and go from there. And maybe through our representatives, we can convince the county to pitch in a set at County Road 109.
You can try, but I can see already the way the county budget's going.
But if you don't ask,
Yep,
all
absolutely.
the worst they can say is, no.
Jim and Brian?
So, here's something we could propose to the county is, if Holstein's gonna go to a 40K zone, there's a set there that won't need to be lit up for school time, and they can move it down the road to 108 and 109.
Great idea. Brian?
A question about the Roads Emergency Disaster Infrastructure Reserve. I see there's 20,000 going into that from this year's taxation, or 2020 taxation. Is that a new reserve, or is that something that we must do, or is that discretionary? It's on page 16 and 21.
Which one is the attachment?
Okay, yeah. That's the fourth. I don't have a line number.
You're 2518.
Okay, Jim, sorry.
If I'm on the right page, Brian, I think we established that when we had, a couple years ago, that June storm where all the flooding was.
Yep.
And we didn't have a budget kind of thing for those type of emergencies. So we built around trying to take that hump out of the road when something emergency comes up along those lines that we don't have one maybe a budget for kind of thing.
So is that the balance of that reserve, or I'm looking through the reserve attachment 3 here, I don't just see it. How much is in that reserve currently? Go ahead.
So in that reserve, it got started in 2017, so we put 20,000 away in 2017 and 2018, or sorry, 2018 and 2018 it started. And then in 2019 we put 20,000 away, and then in 2020 we put another 20,000 away, it brings it to 60,000.
So there's 40K in there right now.
There's 40K in it right now.
Well, I'd suggest we toss that one. I mean, 40K is gonna pour a bit of gravel into a hole somewhere.
Well,
Go ahead.
It took, I can't recall, but it was over 40,000 for that flood event that we had to deal with, washouts and culvert replacement.
maybe I'll jump on that. I'd be careful, we put these things in place to take the bumps out of the road, sort of thing, literally. But with climate change, these storms are getting more severe. I'd suggest for now, let's slow it up to maybe 10,000. Pull 10 and put that back into actual roads, work for next year. And let's see where it is, maybe in 2 or 3 years, because I can see some event where you get around a bridge and wash out, you could dump 100,000 pretty quickly. So we may, that event may take place in 2020, and it may not, but it's better be safe than sorry.
Go ahead, Brian, then Barb.
Okay, so that's 10K. The other question I had was the Unit 294, the 1 ton for 94,000 taxes this year. Does that truck ever leave town?
That's actually a rural truck
Oh, is it? Okay.
that we bought off Grey County a number of years ago. It runs fuel around, and we were looking to put a box on it that would be more ergonomic friendly for coal patching, with the drop lower body on it, and that's what that truck was intended for. It's actually out here in Oakville most of the time, but it would be shared, like it's going through but it's not in that unit. unit in Dundalk's the 550,
So the 94,000, that is to replace the truck or to modify it?
so to replace it, 'cause that's an old, maybe some
The 94.
94, yeah.
The 94 Chev, so I'm sure it's wore out, but, there's 94,000 right there. If you were looking for savings, make that truck struggle along for another year. Put the cold patch in the back of these shiny new pickups that we seem to buy. And the guys who are running the roads all the time, put a bit of cold patch and a shovel in the back of the pickup, and when there's a hole in the road, stop and fill it. To dedicate a truck for 94,000 to run fuel around doesn't make any sense to me. We're not that far from our fuel depots. The trucks can, the machinery can fill up before they head out. I'm on a bit of a roll here, and I'm not trying to be critical, although it sounds like it. Trying to find savings.
Okay,
So, I think that's a good discussion, but I think it may be, we need to be health and safety conscious. This truck has that ergonomic tray, and I think if we want them out there cold patching, here's the device, and we need to get out there and do more of it. So, that's the.
I'm not arguing with that.
Yeah, I know you're not, but, you see the county with them running around and using those trucks. I don't disagree with the pickup truck having a bucket of cold patch or 2 or 3 and fixing those spots they see one off, but we need to, I think the message is clear, we need to get out there and do more cold patching, maintenance on a monthly basis rather than, going through a construction phase and then doing it after the construction phase. So we hear your message, and I think that would be an investment in the future for getting more of this done in a safe and more efficient manner, because it drops it down that it's only about 1.5 feet from the actual surface, and they're not lifting as high, and I think it would be more efficient to get more work done in a shorter period of time.
So how about a used truck for a third of the price?
That's fine with me.
Just saying. We're looking for money.
Barb?
So to Jim, isn't there a standard that if you have to have 2 people in a vehicle when you stop to pull over to do the patching for safety reasons? I mean, you're getting out of the vehicle on the driver's side, obviously if you're by yourself, you're driving, and then you don't have that health and safety aspect of it. I thought that there was something that said when they're out and picking up things and they have to be in tubes. Or maybe that's a county thing.
Yeah, we don't have anything in our, maybe it might be a best practice. We'll have sometimes 2 people out, but quite often it's one person out doing some of that work. But just depends on who's available and where we can get people out.
Okay. Brian and then Martin?
Okay, I'll try again. The Hagen/Gold Street loop, that's to connect those 2 streets through that lot that we purchased, or we finagled there. How critical is that project? I see 40K on that one. Please.
So actually, I was just out on Monday, the contractor was in and put the pipe in, filled the ditch in, so I was there to witness some of that. That is a lot that's already created. It wasn't one we owned. Above there in the north is another connecting piece that has to be done on the developer's dime. But our intent there was to, now that the ditch is closed in, that we could loop the water main around to have no dead ends. And it would basically just be a gravel, not an urbanized area of street, but just to continue around with both the plow truck and the collection truck. And it shouldn't see a whole lot of traffic because people, it doesn't take you anywhere other than if you belong down at the end of those streets. So it's, the main thing would be for those 3 things, water main, collection route, and for not backing up trucks, and same with the plow truck to be able to go through. But this isn't a high prioritized road that's going to be driven on by it'd be less than 20 vehicles a day, I would think, but who knows?
But the 40K will finish that project?
That's what the
To the extent you're going to,
anticipation was.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
When Brian started, Deputy Mayor started talking about reserves, I was looking at the, reserve for signage for downtown and economic development at 24,000. Page 2 of 6. I'm all for downtown development and what have you, but could we not take some of that and put it into the general fund? Because right now, there's really, and I don't mean this with any offense to the shop owners, but there's nothing there right now to put on a sign. So could we take some of those reserves and put them in the general kitty, as they say? Because right now on Highway 10, there are signs by Timmy's and Secure Insurance paying for their own signage, so just leave a little bit in there for the future, but take some of that out and use some of it. I don't know what thoughts are about anybody else on council about that, but I see the point of having signs out there on the road, but when there's no business in town to promote right now, leave maybe 4,000 in there and use 20 somewhere else as roads or somewhere else.
So, that, some of that was for, the entrance sign to the Low Dundalk, when we get, the Eco Parkway extended out to Highway 10.
Oh,
So
okay.
kind of a community entrance sign, or not sign, but it's kind of a, whatever, garden and signs there. I'm hesitant, I would be hesitant about taking something from one bucket, throwing it into another, you know, if it was something, roads to roads, or, you know, water to water, yes, I can see that, but, there was plans there, I mean, that, it's, again, that's up to council, it's not a restricted reserve that it has to stay there, but it was put there for those kinds of reasons.
So Dave, that is not necessarily for what the Economic Development Officer wanted them. Sign with all the different businesses in town. You're talking about a nice concrete.
Yeah, welcome to Southgate,
And
Dundalk,
flowers
and,
and stuff
yes,
like that.
that's
Oh,
right.
okay. Well, either way, could we still not use some of that and, as I said, keep some in reserve for that?
So there's 5,000 there from the county that was granted to us for that, towards that, and then used to put it there until we do use it. So that's one thing, but there was no, is there a contribution this year to that? fund?
No.
Okay, so that rolled, that 15,000 then, was, some of that money was rolled over from last year because it wasn't.
So part of the reason behind that was accomplished is there's some environmental challenges there. And with the road being built, I actually sent this information to them to incorporate for the sign when the road happens, because the road is in some areas that need, it's all in that same area. We're going to swap some wetland and give them some other type land for it. It's not very big, but I mean, that's the trade-off, and that was why the project couldn't proceed, and that's why the county contributed, knowing that we were working towards getting the road and having it at the road there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Barb?
Well, with regard to signs, the economic development signage was the Eco Park and Highway 10 and maybe some waypoint signage downtown Dundalk. What about the gateway signs that Deputy Mayor was, in our last budget review, was concerned about the condition of our gateway signs, and they were supposed to be updated as well. Is that in the roads department?
So actually, we have the signs made. I've had them here for about a month now. They were made through the county. We just haven't had time to get them up and replace them. Some will require some new posts to be put in, because Glenn's vision was to put them at paved roads coming into Southgate. So we have 8 of them made. They're metal signs. ready to go up, and, hopefully we can get them up sooner or later here. But they are out of, the economic development budget, they're not our budget.
Thank you. Brian?
So just to go back to, for a minute, just back to that truck, just a real quick search there, you can buy a 12-year-old 1-ton for $25,000-$35,000, so, I mean, I'm gonna suggest we pull that budget number back to $30,000, and that frees up $64,000 for the signs or whatever else. If it was a roads critical vehicle that needed to go to the city or was plowing snow, I get it, we want new stuff, we want reliable stuff. And if you buy a used Ford, you'll have a reliable truck. And if you buy a Dodge, then you're gonna have a cheap truck.
Your opinion.
Less expensive truck. But in any case, all kidding aside, I think for a vehicle of that necessity, I think we can get by with a used vehicle, and I don't think we need to spend nearly $100,000 on a truck of that nature.
Yep.
Yeah, certainly we can, look at that if that's what, council wishes. I have a note here that Phil had priced out the aluminum box for that is about $13,000, so whether that truck would have that type of box to it, I'm not sure, but, that's the number that I have here.
That was just a real quick scan through Auto Trader, Truck Trader.
And maybe the county will have one coming up, I haven't seen their list lately of what they're
Yeah,
disposing
there's
of,
another
and we get a shot at those vehicles, at first hand.
Yeah.
Okay. Jason?
I was gonna say the same thing Brian just did. I'm gonna go back to it again, that $180,000 sidewalk machine, that just keeps blowing my mind. I seen one yesterday as well, and I'm like, $180,000 for that thing, like, I'm just wondering if it's like 2 skid steers that we could use for other stuff, blowers. I understand what you're saying, that they're a lot handier, just, that number's just crazy to me, but anyhow, just an opinion.
Go ahead, Tim.
We certainly are receiving, again, numerous calls about sidewalk maintenance in Dundalk, why they're not being done, and the information that we're relaying is that we currently have an extra machine to take on more sidewalk in this budget, but it's not approved, that it's a possibility. We are just putting out a communication here right now about the sidewalks in Dundalk between Osprey and Russell. Basically, they're still being poured in this weather conditioning and everything. They won't set and cure within maybe a month here. So we've told, we're getting out a communication, we'll be going to the paper next week saying that you're kind of, we can't maintain them, we can't get on them, we can't salt them. They're gonna kind of be used at your own risk, take caution kind of thing. But we're already hearing calls, well, you don't have a sidewalk here, the kids are gonna have to walk on the road. Well, we're still in construction. That zone is actually still a construction zone, all of it. So, but those are the type of calls we're fielding all the time about sidewalks. And yeah, we if council wishes, but that's what we're hearing all the time, and this is how to help address that issue. But there may be some other avenues we could look at. Refurbish, we bought refurbish before. That would maybe drop in about 40,000 or so if we already have some attachments that we could interuse rather than have a full complement of attachments. But this is something we're hearing a lot, and with the new developments, we haven't started taking them over yet. But we're going to hear from those people absolutely a lot about that. Currently, we've went back to in Holstein with the sidewalk maintenance with the contractor in Holstein, but he's limited because he can't get across the bridge yet either. So we've maintained last week with the snow coming just from the north side of the bridge to the school. We can't do the south side at this point. I'm hearing that the paving's happened. I haven't been out there. It it isn't open yet, the road out there, but it sounds like it's coming along sooner than later. Sidewalks are a big thing though.
Maybe just to add to that, and I'm gonna say it, why we're not on these sidewalks, they have to cure. If we start putting salt on those sidewalks before they cure for at least 28 days, we'll just rip top off. The salt will just destroy them. So this has happened before, and we don't wanna invest in that much sidewalk and make a mess of it.
The engineer does have core samples of that, and they are monitoring them to know if we can get them on sooner or later. We are on downtown section and the section outside of Russell, but they reported a little bit better climate than we are experiencing right now, and hopefully next week we get some good weather. I know they couldn't pour yesterday, but hopefully they can, get these, they've got some big crews coming in, so hopefully they can get them laid down and hopefully the weather will cooperate a little bit. But that's how they monitor this, through the core samples, see how they're standing up to the weather. They leave them outside and stuff, so the conditions that are there.
Okay, thank you. Jason, then Barb, and then Martin.
What is our threshold like for snow removal? Is it an inch, 2 inch, like? Just wondering that.
For sidewalks, I believe it's 8 centimeters, and we have I have to go back, 24 hours to, I think it's 48 for sidewalks, to be over that. But again, our machine right now can do sidewalks in anywhere from maybe 3 hours, sometimes 10 hours, depending on that type of snow and if it's difficult. That wet stuff and it won't blow and you have trouble pushing it because you only push it so far. It's quite a challenge at times. But the trackless does a lot better, or I should say not trackless specific, but those type of specified unique machines do a lot better job than skid steers.
Barb, and then Martin.
I have a couple, one first for Liam with the reserve list. Is there a way for the next round to have a code that says it's you can move it around or you can't move it around? Where a reserve is restricted versus unrestricted? Or am I just missing that? Is there?
So the first section, the reserve, that means, with the reserve, that means it's unrestricted. Council has set that money aside for a specific purpose,
Mhm.
but they're free to redirect those funds
Okay.
at any time. Whereas if it's a reserve fund, then the money is basically restricted for a specific project.
Okay, so reserves versus reserve funds.
Fund, yeah.
Okay, so the fund
So
part is
reserves are
restricted.
unrestricted, essentially, reserve funds
Okay.
and deferred revenue are restricted, to
Okay.
simplify it.
Thanks. And so with the onset of winter early, are we going to be dipping into the winter maintenance stabilization fund? Because, I don't think we anticipated being out with plows and sanders and salters this early, which is why we set up that tax stabilization reserve in the first place. So I'm not supportive of dipping into that. And I remember the effort that went into cleaning up after that flood in June 23rd. So my only concern about the sidewalks and if we're cheaping out. If we cheapen out on the equipment that we're providing to our staff and it takes them longer to do it, then our labor goes up. If we can find a balance between the right equipment, giving them the tools to do it in less time, then our labor will go down. We may cheap out and get, just a standard snow removal piece of equipment, not recommended, and end up spending all that time fixing it. So I just want to say, in my view, if we don't invest in the proper tools, we're going to pay in higher labor costs.
Thank you. Martin?
Yeah, this is about the sidewalk machine too. 180,000 for what they are, what they look like, is a lot. So if you can find a second-hand one, say 20, 30,000, that's fine. But I've got no, even though the price is high, I've got no problem with it because you'll probably end up needing a fleet of these with all the development going on, right? And I imagine the insurance on that machine would be in the township insurance for maintenance of equipment. Far better to pay that and have a good machine than to have to pay a premium for liability when the insurance goes up because somebody falls and sues us. So we have to look at that aspect of it too. So I'm all for that. And like Councillor DeBreen said, we have to have good equipment because with the people coming up, they have different expectations. They'll want it clean. So it is part of it is going to be part of the budget. So if you can find a good quality used one for the time being at 150, that's a saving, but I'm saying it has to be part of the budget some way, shape, or form. And they are expensive for the little things they are, but we will need that. Proactive, we're being proactive in getting that, so.
Okay, thank you. Barb?
Can we do a quick search of gov deals? You were talking about that, where, you know, we can put our used vehicles on and we got better prices, that while we're assessing whether we go brand new versus, hey, is there one out there, then we'd have better information. Maybe we're looking at 160, maybe we're looking at, you know, at 130. Or maybe we bite the bullet and we say, nope, get new.
Same for the pickup truck.
Jason?
No, I agree too. If you can afford a new one, that's fine. How many hours do we put on that thing in a year, like average year? You know? And do we use it for grass cutting? What kind of attachments does it have?
I can't, we can get you the hours, I don't know them off the top of my head, but, we have attachments for sweeping. It also has a water tank on the back, so if it's, in dry conditions, you can put moisture down to sweep. It has a pickup broom and an angle broom. We don't only use that broom in Dundalk, we use it to clean bridges, we use it to clean, the other smaller, subdivisions, we use it for cleaning intersections too during the springtime. So we do multi-use it around. We don't have any grass cutting attachments for it. We spoke to council about this before, that you can get them and you can put out, you know, quite a spread to cut soccer fields or whatever. But at this point in time, we don't have any grass. It's just sweeping and the snow removal equipment. And we also have a chute for the blower that Dave was just mentioning here, that we can directly blow into the trucks, like downtown or whatever. We've tried it. It does work, but we have to do it when it's kind of fresh, because when it's really packed in there and hard, it's a little bit tougher on everything. But last year with our downtown removal of snow, and the county pays a little portion back to that for their piece of Main Street. But we handled that all with, we either take it around the corner and put it in the parking lot and then take it away from there, keep it just cleaned up with the tractor and the other, the sidewalk machine. And we can blow right in directly if it worked for us at the time. But we done all that last year without bringing in third-party contractors. We have done that before, and that usually costs us about $10,000 a shot to clean up downtown when we have them come in for a night. So, you know, our guys are doing that when they're not having to do the daily snow thing, and they can keep on top of it. And we're sometimes successful at doing that, but it's Mother Nature and how you got to deal with her. So.
Just a quick question. You mentioned sweeping, and would this allow, so the tool, does it recapture the sand that it sweeps so that we can put it back into the dome and repurpose it? Because I read that somewhere, maybe it was at Roma or something. But I know the number of calls that I've gotten, when are they gonna come and do the street? Because we have to do it street by street by street, and the demands are getting greater, and it can be a safety issue with excess sand on the roads. So this would allow us to do more sweeping in a more timely fashion, because now you'd have two, right?
Correct, but it depends how the spring comes in, because quite often it can be a late spring and then we're almost right into gravel almost. So there's a whole bunch of variables that play in how we can get our street sweeping done. The bulk of it in Dundalk we have by the contractor that comes in with the bigger street sweeping machine. And we do the streets that they won't do, like the curb and stuff. It does have pickup, so we can reclaim some of that, but again, that would have to be rescreened again to reuse. And then the other ones just pushes it kind of off the side into the ditch or wherever you're sweeping to, so. There is opportunities.
Thank you. Okay, not seeing any more hands up. So, what do we have for suggestions on where we're going? We talked about a bunch of things. Two things I heard that I think were fairly clear were the school lights and the gravel and shouldering going back in. Is that correct? Okay. What else? You heard about the truck trying to get used. Is that council's wish, or?
Maybe we'll get into recap.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
Okay, so I agree that I heard consensus about adding school lights and the road maintenance. I heard talk about Unit 294 about possibly, right now it's budgeted for a new vehicle, but possibility of budgeting for a used vehicle instead.
Okay.
I heard some numbers thrown around. I didn't hear a definitive result of that discussion. So, pardon me? 30?
30K.
Cut.
No, 64 cut. Budget 30,000 for a used truck.
But we need a box to put on it. You can't find those used unless we were lucky enough to buy one through the county.
So are we in a bidding war now, or what, what, you tell me then, would 40 do it?
I just know Bill had given me the price that that box is 13,000, so if we get the chassis, we might have to put a box to it, but I would go to 40 or 45
Well,
that's where you get the chassis for.
All right, well, let's stay at even numbers then. So it's budgeted at 94 currently, so if you pull 50 out of that, leaves you with 44. Is that enough of a saw off there? I mean, it's a budget, right? Because it could be.
We can have a look, we'll shop it and see what they think.
Okay. Herb?
So, yeah, Deputy Mayor Milne had mentioned cutting the emergency disaster relief. I don't support that. And, but that's, council's wish. And again, I think you'll look at Gov Deals and you'll look at what might be out there. But if we're looking at a 10 or 13-year-old vehicle, how much life are we going to get out of it? Like spend 45 now, spend 60 now, and maybe it'll last a couple extra years. Again, that's council's wish.
So what number do we want to go with?
So, that's fine. I don't disagree with you necessarily, but we're trying to find money here. So you tell me what the alternative is.
Find out from staff what they can come up with.
So let's, can we saw off at, let's put 50 in for that Unit 294, and then the emergency relief for, in case there's a roads disaster, cut that from 20 to 10. And so, the net result, we'd still have about a $54,000 cut there, which would be 0.5%. I don't know, by the sound of it, I mean, if we stayed at 4, that would be maybe putting another 30 or 35 back into, I'm not, I don't have the math in my head here exact, but, put 40, say, or 35 back into roads to increase maintenance. Is that your net result? Sticking at 4, but making these cuts to shove it over?
Yeah.
Okay, that's just, I just want that clarity for
Yeah.
Liam and doing these calculations. We'll stick at 4, but wherever we can make these cuts of 10 and say 24 from the, 44 from the 94, we'll shove back into maintenance with the other roads cuts not being made regarding the light and the other things.
So for those couple of items, what's council's thought? Is that what Dave just mentioned? Is that
I'm agreeing with
acceptable?
that. Yep.
Okay,
Agreeable here?
I don't see any, is there, okay, use your mic.
I will, thank you. Just was waiting to be allowed. Thank you.
I was just waiting for the
So
opportunity.
we're talking about cutting 54 through $10,000 into the out of the stabilization, and 44, hopefully, on a used pickup. We're putting back in 37, which is 22 for the solar set, and the 15,000 for graveling. So we actually have reduced the budget, $13,000. Sorry, $17,000. Net, right? And we'll keep the 180 for the snow plow, sidewalk machine for now, but staff are gonna do their due diligence and look at what might be available through gov deals or whatever options. Is that what we're talking about, Liam?
Well, so far,
Still around 4,000,
Yeah.
sorry, 4%.
yeah, but if we handle these things a couple at a time, or one, if they're tied in a couple at a time, and one from there, we can get consensus and go. So, basically, if we're in agreement for the, truck and, I've already forgotten what the other part, the reducing the input for the emergency, reserve. Okay, so that sounds like that's,
Yeah, so, I mean, the other equipment piece was, or cut piece we were talking about was the sidewalk machine. I think what we'll do there is we'll contact suppliers and see, what's the availability of a used piece of equipment that's gently used, not 10 years old used, but gently used, that we could, use the same attachments we have versus new, and 180 is a budget number. What are they bidding at now with RFPs and bidding process? I don't know, but maybe we can get a better feel on that. Maybe Jim knows some of those answers, but I think at least take a look at where we could save, and if we do save there, the savings would go back into a reserve for equipment anyway for futures.
okay, Liam?
I just want to clarify, the sidewalk machine isn't using any of taxation in 2020, it was being funded through debt. So I would think the direction would be to staff to see if they could find a cheaper machine that would do, and all that means would be less debt that the municipality would need. It actually doesn't have a taxation impact in 2020.
Okay, yep, thank you. And that's the direction council wants to go, see if there's a refurbished or gently used, or
I think so.
if possible.
5 years, we'll probably have to buy another one to have a fleet, so we have to start being proactive with that, so.
Okay. Okay, so then the next item, is there?
I'm not sure which one to go, so school lights was
Yeah.
at 22,000.
Yeah.
The roads maintenance was at 15,000.
Yeah.
The emergency reserve, was reduced by 10,000.
Correct.
In 294, I have a reduction of 94,000, so, sorry,
No.
44,000, from
Right.
94,000 to 50,000.
Yep.
So that's a net reduction of $7,000.
Okay. And that's
So that's about
our list.
a little less than 0.1
Yeah.
impact.
Put 7 back in for chip today.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say chipper. last year.
I looked hard, but I didn't see one.
Net 17.
We'll put that in chipper reserve.
How memory works, eh?
That was fun.
Okay, does that give enough direction?
That is what I've captured, yeah.
Yep. Okay, council, anything else?
So,
So,
we need to amend the committee of the whole motion then. I would recommend that we would just receive it for information in committee of the whole like we did last meeting, and then when we resolve that to council, then we'll amend the motion.
Well, doesn't the motion state that we're simply recommending it back to council and for further discussion on the whatever?
As it states right now, we'd have to present what we're seeing today at the November 20th public info meeting, and it's
Right.
being considered for approval as it states.
yeah, so,
So I would recommend that we just amend the motion in committee to remove the third and fourth clause, and then when we resolve back to council, we'll add a clause that, as discussed today.
okay,
Sure.
Like we did it last time, it was just cleaner that way,
okay.
if that's okay.
So, since we're at this part, I'll read through parts of this.
Yep.
Yeah,
So right now, this is what it's sitting at that we receive it
Yep.
today.
so
We need an amendment to remove.
to remove the last two, okay. So what it'll be is, to remove the third and fourth, clauses. So it would end up being be resolved that committee of the whole receives staff report, number 2020 budget as information, and that we recommend, to council this, budget be received as information. Okay,
And then we'll,
Yep.
so when we are in council, just to clarify, because I'm willing to move this motion, we can then indicate that, so that we don't change the timeline, we can still present the budget with the revisions changed, discussed in the committee of the whole.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we'll move, once we resolve that, we'll move an amendment to that. Okay, thank you.
okay, so you'll move that, Martin, you'll second that? Any further discussion? And that would be the amendment. Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. So then we'll vote on the motion as amended. Okay, any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Now I'd entertain a motion for us to resolve, back to the special council meeting at 10:14. Brian and Jim? I don't see any discussion. All in favor? That is carried. So, I'll just, okay, so now I'll need a motion to be resolved, council receive staff report FIN 2019-049, the 2020 budget as information.
So it needs to be moved and seconded, then we can amend.
So Martin will move that. Okay, seconder. Okay, Brian? Any discussion? So what amendment do we need? If any? Barb?
I think basically, and that that council recommends or approve the 2020 budget, or authorize the 2020 budget be presented at a public information meeting being held on November 20th, 2009, as amended with the recommendations discussed in committee of the whole. I'm gonna ask that I have wrote something up here, so.
Okay.
Awesome. It would say, be it resolved that council amend the motion to add clauses that state that council direct staff to revise the 2020 budget as discussed in committee of the whole, and that council direct staff to present the revised 2020 budget information at the November 20th, 2019 public information meeting, and that council consider approval of the revised 2020 budget at December 4th, 2019 council meeting. Is that? I would move that. Okay.
Okay, seconder? Jim? Any discussion on that amendment?
Actually, isn't the meeting in Holstein on the 19th, because there's a...
That's for the community information, or, community improvement plan
Oh,
And
sorry.
the OP.
and the official plan. So there's a
with information we need for budget before the council meeting on the 20th.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the amendment? That is carried. So now we have the amendment, or the motion as amended. Any discussion, Brian?
Oh, it's already moved in
Yeah.
second, sorry.
Yeah, oh, okay, I thought you were in favor too, though.
Yeah,
Uh,
I am.
All in favor? And that is carried. Confirming bylaw, somebody to move and second that. Jason? And Jim? Okay, any discussion on the confirming bylaw? All in favor? That is carried. I know somebody that likes to do the motion for adjournment, so we'll have Brian there. So we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Sorry, Jeff, we didn't take much of a run planning, or building it.
Yeah.